Good afternoon. We are here with another Mediumship literature group. We meet each other Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. The group is free and you're welcome to join us. If you'd like to join our live discussions, please contact me through my Facebook page, Revenant World, and I'll be happy to add you to our live discussions. We are currently reading the Spirits book by Allan Kardec, and we are reading in sequence, and the book is a compilation of 1009 questions and answers from the scientists to the spirits about everything that pertains to humans' lives. So it's really educative, and doesn't matter which religion you have, which faith you have, is a very good source of information for all of us. So, Karen, I can send you later the PDF for you. I
Yes.
I guess I can send you later. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Okay.
It's okay. I've already sent it.
Okay, thank you. Is on the chat for you to download to your computer, so you have it for next time. Thank you so much, Catherine. So we are now on question 711 from the chapter 20, the laws of preservation. And this sector is about enjoying the fruits of the earth. Question 711. If anyone would like to read, you're welcome to, or I can read. It's up to you.
I can do a bit, but I'll drop the ball to somebody else in a bit.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just let me know when you're tired.
Sure.
Could I get a page reference?
Yeah, so that's gonna be $2.99.
Thank you.
I think. Yeah, $2.99 at the bottom of the page. $7.11.
Yeah, look for the question 711. The number of the pages varies depending on the edition, but the questions are always the same.
Enjoyments of the fruits of the earth. Question 711. Have all men a right to usufruct of the products of the earth? That right is a consequence of the necessity of living. God cannot have imposed a duty without having given the means of discharging it. 712. Why has God attached an attraction to the enjoyment of material things? In order first to excite men to the accomplishment of his mission, and next to try him to tempt him by temptation. What is the aim of temptation? To develop his reason, that it may preserve him from excesses. If a man had only been urged to the using of the things of the earthly life by a conviction of their utility, his indifference to them might have compromised the harmony of the universe. God has therefore given him the pleasurable attractions that solicit him to the accomplishing of the views of providence. But God has also willed, through this attraction, to try men by temptations that incite him to abuses against which his reason should protect him. 713. Has nature marked out the proper limits of corporeal satisfactions? Yes, limits that coincide with your needs and your well-being. When you overstep them, you bring on satiety and thus punish yourselves. 714. What is to be thought of the man who seeks to enhance corporeal enjoyments by inventing artificial excesses? Think of him as a poor wretch who is who is to be pitied rather than envied, for he is very near death. Do you mean physical death or moral death? Both. The man who, in pursuit of corporeal satisfactions, seeks an enhancement of those satisfactions in any kind of excess, places himself below the level of the brute, for the brute goes no farther than the satisfaction of a need. He abdicates the reason given to him by God for his guidance, and the greater his excesses, the more dominion does he give to his animal nature over his spiritual nature. The maladies and infirmities, often occasioning death, that are consequences of excess in the satisfaction of any corporeal attraction, are also punishments for thus transgressing the law of God. Necessaries and superfluities. 7:15. How can men know the limit of what is necessary? Wise men know by intuition. Others learn it through experience and to their cost. 7:16. Has not nature traced out the limit of our needs and the requirements of our organization? Yes, but man is insatiable. Nature has indicated the limits of his needs by his organization, but his vices have deteriorated his constitution and created for him what wants that are not real needs. 7:17. What is to be thought of those who monopolize the productions of the earth in order to procure for themselves superfluities at the expenses of others who lack the necessaries of life? They forget the law of God and will have to answer to the privations they have caused others to endure. There is no absolute boundary line between the necessary and the superfluous. Civilization has created necessities that do not exist for the savage, and the spirits who have dictated the foregoing precepts do not mean to assert that civilized men should be like the savage. All things are relative, and the function of reason is to determine the part to be allotted to each. Civilization develops the moral sense, and at the same time, the sentiment of charity, which leads men to give to each other mutual support. Those who live at the expense of other men's privations monopolize the benefits of civilization for their own profit. They have only the varnish of civilization, as others have only the mask of religion. Voluntary privations. 7:18. Does the law of self-preservation make it our duty to provide for our bodily wants? Yes, without physical health and strength, labor is impossible. 7:19. Is it blamable in a man to seek after the comforts and enjoyments of corporeal life? The desire of corporeal well-being is natural to men. God only prohibits excess because excess is inimical to preservation. He has not made it a crime to seek after enjoyment, if that enjoyment be not acquired at another's expense, and if it be the riot of nature to weaken either your moral or physical strength. 7:20. Are voluntary privations in view of voluntary expiation meritorious of the sight of God? Do good to others, and you will thereby acquire more merit than is to be acquired by any self-imposed privations. Is any voluntary privations meritorious? Yes, the self-privation of useless indulgences, because it loosens man's hold on to matter and elevates the soul. What is meritorious is resistance to the temptation that solicits to excess or to indulgence in what is useless. And it is the cutting down even of your necessaries that you may have more to give to those who are in want. If your privations are only a vain pretense, they are a mere mockery. 721. At every period in the past and among all people, there have been men who have lived a life of ascetic mortification. Is such a life meritorious from any point of view? Ask yourselves to whom such a life is useful, and you will have the reply to your question. If such a life is only for him who leads it, and if it prevents him from doing good to others, it is only a form of selfishness, whatever the pretext with which it is colored. True mortification, according to the dictates of Christian charity, is to impose privation and labor upon yourselves for the good of others. 722. Is there any foundation in reason for the abstinence from certain elements practiced among various peoples? Whatever man can eat without injury to his health is permitted to him. Legislators may have prohibited certain elements for some useful end, and in order to give greater weight to their prohibitions, have represented them as emanating from God. 723. Is the use of animal food by men contrary to the law of nature? With your physical constitution, flesh is useful for nourishing flesh. Without this kind of sustenance, men's strength declines. The law of preservation makes it a duty for man to keep up his health and strength, that he may fulfill the law of labor. He should therefore feed himself according to the requirements of his organization. 724. Is there any merit in abstinence from any particular kind of food, animal, or other when undergone as an expiation? Yes, if undergone for the sake of others, but God cannot regard as meritorious any abstinence that does not impose a real privation and that has not a serious and useful aim. This is why we say that those whose fasting is only apparent are hypocrites. 725. What is to be thought of the mutilation of the bodies of men or animals? What is the use of asking such a question? Ask yourselves once and for all whether a thing is or is not useful. What is useless cannot be pleasing to God, and what is hurtful is always displeasing to him. Be very sure that God is only pleased with the sentiments that raise the soul towards him. It is by practicing his law and by not violating it that you can shake off your terrestrial matter. 726. If the sufferings of the world elevate us through the manners in which we bear them, are we elevated by those which we voluntarily create for ourselves? The only sufferings that can elevate you are those which come upon you naturally, because they are inflicted by God. Voluntary sufferings count for nothing when they are not useful to others. You suppose that those who shorten their lives by superhuman hardships, like the bonzes, fakirs, and fanatics of various sects, advance their progress thereby? Why do they not rather labor for the good of those their fellow creatures? Let them clothe the naked. Let them comfort those who mourn. Let them work for the infirm. Let them impose privations upon themselves for the sake of the unfortunate and the needy, and their life will be useful and pleasing to God. When your voluntary sufferings are undergone only for yourselves, they are more selfishness. When you suffer for others, you obey the law of charity. Such are the precepts of Christ. 727. If we ought not to create for ourselves voluntary sufferings that are of no use to others, ought we to endeavor the ward off from ourselves those which we foresee or with which we are threatened. The instinct of self-preservation has been given to all beings to guard them against dangers and sufferings. Flagellate your spirit and not your body. Mortify your pride. Stifle the selfishness that eats into the heart like a devouring worm, and you will something more of your advancement than you could do by any amount of macerations out of keeping with the age of which you are living. And I think that's a wrap for that section.
Yeah. Any comments or what do you guys understand? Any questions or comments about this sector?
Just a quick comment for myself. I thought about Siddhartha, like the Buddha, how he was like creating privation for himself, like, but also like abandoning his children.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah,
but
right?
he's very admired and regarded as like one of the highest souls.
Yeah.
But I remember when I was reading that book at like 20, I was like shocked. I like, who the heck abandons their children? You know, like.
Yeah, I have the same question. Like, I really love Buddhism and all these teachings, but definitely is something to question, right? Like at the beginnings of it. Yeah, so Elizabeth, we started on question 711, enjoying the fruits of the earth. So, again, the spirits are continue the same as the beginning of the chapter. They are emphasizing the importance of uh, understanding what is right, what is wrong, based on the utility of what we do, in which we do whatever we do. So, in terms of consumptions, so we are allowed to consume the fruits of the earth because we need that to self-preservation. So self-preservation is one of the laws of God. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to feed ourselves. We have to do everything we need to maintain our body, our physical body, intact during the course of our existence. And so eating is not a problem, but again, they call our attention to excesses, right? Everything in excess is bad. If we overgo, don't obey the limits of what the body needs, and do anything, including eating, based on excesses, that becomes harmful physically, harmful emotionally, and harmful spiritually. So therefore, after that point, is not something that is good or is according with the law of God. They talk about eating meat, right? Eating other animals. So we need to remember that humanity and every being in the universe evolves according with their spiritual development. Our body, our physical body, is constitutes a pair, something that we need in this level of existence, in this dimension. So we are not as evolved. We are still in a third dimension. There are 12 dimensions in the universe, and from low to high, the low being the lowest level of spiritual development, and the highest, the 12th dimension, would be the highest level of spiritual development. So we are still in the third dimension. We are in the beginning of our development. We are not the very bottom, but we are still very gross in terms of spiritual development, and our physical bodies is very still very, they use a word in other chapters, uh, but I forgot. But it is very not as enlightened. We need the kind of food we need. It depends on our spiritual development. We have seen since this when this book was written, we have seen changes in people's physical existence. Like more and more people are developing allergies to meat, to dairies and meat. So and that is somehow leading people to be more vegan and inflicting less harm on animals. And this is like a reflection of our spiritual development. And that's very interesting to notice. They also talk about the other kinds of excess. The versions that you guys read has a different wordings, but here on mine they mention about drugs and sex, food, any kind of behavior that is used in excess is not according with the laws of God, because it's harmful to ourselves and harmful to others, depending on the circumstance. So someone that's intoxicated with alcohol or drugs, they sometimes destroy their own families, they destroy their behaviors, they inflict pain on others, they can become violent, or they can become destructive, or their judgment is impaired, so they're going to make decisions or engage in behaviors that are not socially accepted or even harmful to other people and themselves. So all those things are not according with the laws of God. And on my version, in your versions, the next chapter is titled the needs and superfluous, right? So in my version is needs and wants. So it's kind of the same meaning. So everything that's not the basic need, is not our necessity, is superfluous, which is want. So, and the spirits are encouraging us to focus on our needs. So whatever we do, like they ask several times, the scientists ask several times, if it's any meritorious to make any sacrifice, right? Like Catherine mentioned the example of Buddha, that he was, not eating and just meditating for a while during the beginning of his career as enlightened person. I don't know how to call, but and there are several examples of that. There are people in other religions, like even Catholicism, the monks, right? They lock themselves in a monastery just to pray, even though praying and absenting themselves from luxuries and things that are superfluous, but and praying is a good thing, but they are also preventing themselves from doing good to help others. They are locked themselves. They are not interacting with other people that need them. So whatever deprivation we do that's not useful for others is not according with the law of God. So it's not encouraged, and it is useless, and it's not conducive to our spiritual development. I guess that covers pretty much what is being said here. Any other comments or questions?
I kind of, what does privations mean when it's talking about voluntary privations?
Yeah.
Oh, self-preservation. Oh, okay.
So, yeah, voluntary self privation. So if you voluntarily beat yourself, or you voluntarily lock yourself and don't don't have any luxuries, or voluntarily impose sufferings, or don't eat, or don't do anything to pray or whatever, or even to just inflict pain, because there were, like in the Middle Age, for example, there's a thing, right? That was the expected, especially because of all those plagues that were taking Europe at that time, and all over the world actually, and so they kind of felt that that was God's punishment to humanity, and they engaged in several rituals of self-flagellation and self-mutilation to repair their sins and to be pleasing to God, and any other self-deprivation. Deprivation is like you are not allowing yourself something that you need,
Mhm.
or you are imposing yourself some pain by choice, right? So that, and the spirits are saying that this is not good in the eyes of God, is not pleasing to God if it doesn't it doesn't have a motivation to help others. So if we make a sacrifice of working longer hours because you're helping others, people that are in need, people that either close or strangers who are in need of help because like you're making food for them or taking care of them, people that are sick, and volunteering our time, going to places of natural disasters to help people, that is pleasing to God, because our sacrifice and our suffering is in pro of other people's needs. We are helping others. So the key is always that our goal as humanity is to help each other. Our spiritual growth is proportional to how much we help each other, because that's the law of the universe, right? So there's a misinformation about from the Christians criticizing spiritualists, for example, saying that spiritualists claim that they're gonna get, they're claiming the salvation place in heaven through their own work, through their own jobs. This is a misinterpretation. It's not that we are buying our salvation. We are not buying our place in heaven by doing good to others. If we do that, it's useless, because it's just self-indulgent. It's a selfish motivation, right? But what Spiritism says is that by helping others, we are evolving, we are engaging in the natural law of the universe. That's how the angels function, that's how the enlightened spirits function, that's how God functions, that's how our cells in our body functions, that's how all the elements in nature functions, in our ecosystem functions. So we are not doing anything more than engaging in the natural law of the universe. And therefore, we are getting closer to God, because the more we engage in the natural laws of the nature, we are obeying the laws of God, because God creates the nature. So the laws of the universe is the laws of God, right? So in helping each other based on love, based on the understanding that we all belong to the same universe and we all depend on each other, even if we don't directly depend, if we are not directly related, but we are all related without exception, just because we belong to the same universe. So this understanding is part of our spiritual evolution, because is a law that exists regardless of we accept or not, regardless of we obey or not. The law is there, period. It's like the law of gravity. If we don't believe in the law of gravity and we drop an apple, the apple's gonna fall anyways. It doesn't require our faith. It's not about believing or not believing. The law is there, period. So it's the same thing with this concept of the wholeness, that we are all interrelated and interconnected. And that's why we need to help each other. That's why we need to develop universal love. That's why we cannot harm each other. And we need to keep our focus on what is right, what's wrong, based on that, based on how much that's being harmful or positive for me, and harmful or positive for others around me. So that's the golden rule, and that's the law of the universe. For us to determine what is right, what's wrong in our conduct.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yes. Mhm.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank
So,
you.
any other comments or questions? So when we do mediumship, that is something that we need to keep in mind as well, because we can both base our own conduct and measure our own conduct, attitude, feelings, and thoughts based on that. Like analyze, okay, why I'm feeling this, why I want to do this, why I am engaging in this such a feelings or behaviors or whatever it is. Is it good? Is something that comes from a selfless point of view, is to help others, or is to indulge myself, is to help myself, right? So, and also to evaluate the spirits that's there communicating with us, because sometimes we always need to put the intention to ask God for protection, to set the intention to be the highest. Everything we do in leadership, all the messages to be to the highest and the best of all, for us and for others, the seater or the group that we are doing the reading for. But also we need to kind of keep our eyes on the kind of sensation and the kind of effect that the spirit have, because the spirits that are good, even if they are not as developed, but if they are good, they have good morals, they are going to say who they are. But bad spirits can disguise themselves as others. They can disguise themselves as an angel or an archangel or as a loved one, a grandmother. They can pretend that they are somebody else and then give advices that are not good for the person or not good for us. And blending with their energy as mediums is also can be very dangerous. So we need to keep this in mind. So a good spirit never induce anyone to fight, never induce anyone to have anger towards anyone, to have resentments, to have jealousy, to be selfish, to do anything that's against the law of God. So they are always uplifting, they are always productive in loving and caring. So if they are not doing that, even if they claim that they are an angel or an archangel, is just a trap. So we need to be aware of that, right? So I guess we can start the next chapter next time, because if we start now, we are going to not be able to do much, and it's going to be more confusing for the next time. So if you guys have any other questions or answers, we can discuss, or I would like to hear any other comments. What do you think, Karen?
I think it's interesting. I've never heard of this book or seen it done this way. So it's definitely a different perspective, especially when trying to look at it from practicing the mediumship and knowing those, the ability to communicate with spirit and do all of this, talking with my guides. And it's an interesting balance in putting together that. Because quite frankly, for me, in this journey that I've been on, I finally understand the Holy Spirit now. It's a concept I could never really fully wrap my head around until having gone down this path in the last year and a half. And so I think what I gathered out of it, and what has been true to what I've been learning anyway, as long as we do everything in a way that it does, in fact, help others also, not just for our own good. And that is the right way, if there is such a thing as a right way.
Absolutely. I think it is a very good point. All those wonderful things that you're sharing in your experience. And Catherine is saying that she can relate to that, the things you mentioned. And that's very true. Like I also felt much closer to God, and I understood Jesus. I understood Mary much better than through mediumship than before. I never had a relationship with the Virgin Mary before. I grew up as a Baptist, and through mediumship, I developed a very close connection with her, and with Jesus, and so many wonderful enlightened spirits that, you know, and that's true, and that's the beauty of mediumship. Is not contradicting to any religion. And is absolutely enhanced our spiritual experience, and it's very beautiful, yeah. And it's an asset, it's a privilege for us to have access to those lessons, right? Those all those books that have been written since the beginning of modern spiritualism in the 17th century until now, because that's the evolution of that we are going through. Like we are, all those knowledges were out there, but we are not capable of understanding back then, even at the time of Jesus. Like humanity could not understand some things that we are being able to understand now. Like, for example, the concept of God being an energy, right? People needed to understand God as a person, and the concept of hell and heaven, you know, as a place that's like absolute, infinite. Is like as if it's a place itself. So, and through spiritualism and through all those revelations that the spirits had, and which is very coherent with what Jesus have said, but now in a more detailed way we can experience that, we can understand that science is coherent with all those things as well. It's not conflicting with science. Understanding that things are volatile, things are changeable, the same way as nature is changeable, right? As we evolve, our place changes. We feel differently. Like even like we can even experience in our own lives. Like I don't know if you guys ever had this experience. Like you lived in that place for a while, and the surroundings are the same, and everything is the same, but eventually, if you find a turning point in your life, and you are in a moment of happier than you were before, or something happened, all of a sudden that place becomes more beautiful, right? You guys ever experienced that? So that's the beauty of the transformation of energy, and how much our reality is a reflection of how we feel and where we are spiritually. All right, so that's wonderful. Let's wrap it up for now, and we are going to do our final prayer. Dear God, thank you so much for this day, for this wonderful group, for the lives of everyone in here. Thank you for the opportunity to read and to learn from you, from your enlightened spirits, all those wonderful lessons that helps us to grow, help us to evolve, and help us to help each other in our planet. Help us to put in practice the things we have learned and to be pleasing to you, that our choices are um, fruitful for us and for other people around us. Thank you so much for your unconditional love. Amen. All right, so I hope you guys can join us in 2 weeks. For those who are watching us from the online, we meet each other Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. If you would like to join our live discussions, please contact me through my Facebook page, Revenant World, and I'll be happy to add you to our live discussions. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful couple of weeks, and I'll see you then.